Hello girls, I hope you're staying safe at home. Now moving on to the last chapter, we will be doing the endocrine system. Now, endocrine glands secrete certain chemicals known as hormones. Now you have an idea of what hormones are because we already discussed about plant hormones. Now you know hormones are very important secretions for the regulation of different body activities. Okay, so why is there a need for regulation of body activities? Because the activities in our bodies are very complex and they need to be regulated in such a way that every activity takes place at a proper time and in a correct sequence. For example, the gastric juice, bile and pancreatic juice should be poured into the food canal when? Only when the food is in it. Otherwise, when you are sleeping, when you are not eating, like apart from your lunchtime, these juices should not be produced in the body when there is no food in the food canal. So this kind of regulation, to some extent, you know, it is done by the nervous system, but it is also brought about by chemical regulators which are known as hormones. Okay, so you will see the 7 differences in the action of the nervous system and the hormonal control in this table. Go through it and please write it down, your first assignment for the day. Now, hormones are secretion from specific cells. They are produced in a certain gland or a certain cell in the body, and then it is carried to all the different parts through the blood, and wherever their effect is supposed to be produced, it will be given to that certain part. Okay, so that part is known as target organ or cells only. Now you know the hormones are secreted by special glands which are also known as endocrine glands. Okay, endo means inside, crine means separate. So it means to secrete internally. That means the hormones are secreted internally inside a gland or a cell, and they are also known as ductless glands. Why? Because they do not have any ducts to carry the hormones. The secretions are poured directly into the blood, and then it is carried by the blood to the target organs. And there are certain hormones which are produced in some other glands or body parts which has a different primary function. The main function is different. For example, the stomach and the duodenum. What is their main function? Function is for digestion, but they also produce certain hormones. Now, the endocrine system consists of glands, glandular cells, which bring over a common function of chemical coordination in the body. That means there is a chemical coordination. There should be teamwork. Okay, so that all the glands must work in a coordinated manner. So they activate each other and they work as a system of organs. Okay, and this system is known as the endocrine system. So you know what is a system. It is defined as a group of organs performing an overall common function. So endocrine glands secrete certain chemicals which are known as hormones. Now, what are the general properties of hormones? Now, you already know that they are secreted in an endocrine gland, that is the source, an endocrine gland, and then it is poured directly into the blood. They regulate, they means the hormones regulate the physiological processes, the different life processes taking place inside our body by chemical means. Okay, so they affect actually the enzyme systems of the body. You know, enzyme means a biological catalyst which speeds up the reaction or brings down the rate of the reaction. So they affect, the hormones affect the enzyme systems of the body, and you know they act only on target organs or cells, usually very far away from wherever they are produced, far away from their source. Hormones produced in one species usually shows similar influence in other species as well. So it is more or less similar, and they are produced in very small quantities and are biologically very active. For example, adrenaline is active even in a concentration of 1 part in 300 lakh parts. Now, chemically, some hormones are peptides. You know, peptides comes from proteins. Okay, when proteins breaks down, like here example is given like insulin, which are water soluble. These peptides dissolve in water. Some are amines derived from amino acids such as adrenaline. Again, this is also water soluble. And some are steroids, which are derived from cholesterol such as testosterone, okay, which are lipid soluble. Lipid soluble means they dissolve in fats. Okay, children, this one you can mark it important. Okay, now the excess means hypersecretion or oversecretion, or deficiency if it is secreted in less quantities. Hypo, under secretion, will lead to serious consequences. Various diseases you will see related to hypersecretion or hyposecretion of the hormones. And remember that hormones are not stored in the body. It will be excreted out from the excretory system. So to define a hormone, hormone is a secretion from some glandular part of the body which is poured directly into the blood and which acts on the target organs or cells of the same individual, bringing about coordination between distant parts of the body. Now, moving on to the endocrine gland. Okay, the main endocrine glands are adrenal, pancreas, thyroid, pituitary. You have only 4 in your syllabus, and the remaining 3 are parathyroid, thymus, and gonads. Okay, so we'll be learning about these different endocrine glands in details, and also the diseases, or when there is hypersecretion or hyposecretion, what type of diseases they produce in the body. So this diagram is important, children. Please remember, this diagram will come to you in your question paper, the location. Okay, so pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, okay, pancreas, okay, stomach, small intestine, hypothalamus, testes in males and ovaries in females. So this is the location of the endocrine glands in the body. Okay, so both the sexes, males and females, they have the same endocrine glands, except of course the sex glands, the ovary in females and testes in male. Now adrenal glands. Now adrenal glands are like caps on the top of each kidney. So you can see the location of the adrenal glands on the top here, like caps. Okay, so each adrenal gland consists of 2 parts. A central medulla, here you can see in the diagram, right at the center you have the medulla, and a peripheral. At the side you have the cortex, just like in the kidneys. If you remember, when we discussed the excretory system, we did learn about the cortex and medulla portion of the kidney as well. So a central medulla and a peripheral. At the side you have the cortex. Now adrenal medulla secretes adrenaline. This is important, children. Okay, which hormone? Now this adrenaline is also known as epinephrine or noradrenaline. Now adrenaline is a hormone which prepares the body to meet any emergency situation. For fight, you're very angry, adrenalized it is called, or to face, that is to face danger, or for flight, either you want to run away from it, either you want to fight. So that time extra energy and strength is provided to the body in that situation. There is extra hormones released into the blood at the time of emotional stress. When you are excited or angry, adrenals produce a lot of adrenaline. And the gland itself is stimulated by nerve endings of the autonomic nervous system. So let's take a quick look at the effects of adrenaline on the different body parts. Now you're very angry. Okay, you're having a fight. What happens to your heart? It beats faster. Blood pressure increases. Okay, it sends more glucose and oxygen to the muscles, ready for a fight or to run away. Okay, what is the sensation? Thumping heart. And you start breathing faster and faster and deeper, because more oxygen is required, and there must be rapid removal of carbon dioxide. So you will start panting. Okay, then arterioles of the skin constricts them. There is less blood going to the skin, so that more blood or more oxygen is given to the muscles. Either you need more energy. Okay, so a person turns pale. And arterioles of the digestive system also, it constricts, less blood goes to the digestive system. Why? Because more blood must go to the muscles. The muscle must need more energy, that means more oxygen. Okay, so because of that, the mouth becomes dry, and muscles of the body, it becomes very tense, ready for immediate action. So you will shiver, there is a tense feeling, you will shiver because your muscles have tightened. Okay, and in the liver, what happens? Glycogen gets converted to glucose because more energy is required in the body. So this produces no sensation, and if there is any fat deposit in the body, it converts fats into fatty acids, and this fatty acid is required. Why? For contraction of the muscles, or for muscle action. Okay, and of course, in addition, you can see here, it also increases clotting capacity of the blood, dilates the pupil of the eye, stimulates uterine contraction during labor, delivery of the baby, stimulates muscle of the hair follicle. Okay, so if you remember, these functions are similar to those of the sympathetic autonomic nervous system. Okay, now let's move to the functions of adrenaline, that is the emergency hormone. Now we already saw it increases the heartbeat accompanied by increase in blood pressure. It increases blood supply to the muscles because now the muscles need more blood, because more blood means more oxygen supply. And it decreases to the skin and the visceral organ. Visceral organ means the digestive system, digestive organs. And more glucose is released into the blood by the liver. Like it is like, in the liver, the glycogen which is stored converts into glucose, which will be used in the body, and it is like putting more fuel into the engine. Okay, so the final dash to win a race. Now you are coming second and a little bit space is there and you want to win the race. So the final dash, you run very quickly. It is under the influence of adrenaline. More adrenaline is released into your body, more energy is given to your body. Now next we move on to the adrenal cortex. It secretes many hormones, but the best known hormone is cortisone, which suppresses inflammation. It does not allow, getting, swollen parts in your body. Now there are two types of hormones, cortical hormones. First is mineralocorticoids, that is minerals, regulates mineral metabolism, especially sodium and potassium ions. Okay, next is glucocorticoids. The name itself will tell you. Minerals means sodium, potassium, glucose means fats, protein, carbohydrate. Okay, glucocorticoids, it regulates carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism. So in general, the cortical hormones increases blood sugar concentration. It influences fat and protein metabolism. It regulates salt and water balance in the body. It adapts the body to stresses such as extreme heat or cold, burns, infections, that is when you're sick. Okay, and there are certain cortical hormones which behave like sex hormones. They are both male as well as female hormones in different sexes, of course. In males they are the male hormones, in females they are the female hormones. So in case there is an overgrowth of the cortex when a child is young, it leads to premature sexual maturity. That is, a very small girl child may start her menstruation early. Okay, so there is premature sexual maturity. Now you must have seen an interesting fact: women with beard and men with breasts. Now if there is an overgrowth of adrenal cortex in a mature woman, she develops certain male characteristics such as beard, mustaches and a deep male voice. Okay, this condition is known as adrenal virilism. But if the overgrowth occurs in a mature man or men, they may develop some feminine characteristics such as enlargement of the breast. So the hormones in our body must be, secreted in the right quantity. Now hyposecretion, if there is less secretion from the adrenal cortex, it causes a disease which is known as Addison's disease. Symptoms are loss of energy, skin pigmentation, loss of weight, nausea, Hypoglycaemia. Hypo means less. Glycaemia means blood sugar. So there is low blood sugar. Sensitivity to cold and pain. That means you feel cold very quickly and you feel pain also very, even if it is a small cut, the pain is terrible and the person will easily get other infections. That is, there is increased susceptibility to infections. And if there is hypersecretion, that is more of the adrenal cortex, it causes a disease which is known as Cushing's syndrome. Okay, so what are the symptoms? Obesity, that is, a person becomes very fat. Hyperglycemia, again, you know, hyper means more, glycemia means blood sugar, so there is higher blood sugar. Osteoporosis means the bones become brittle. Okay, it will easily break. There is weakness, there is salt and water retention. Okay, now next, moving on to the pancreas. You know that pancreas is a duct gland as well as a ductless gland. When is it a duct gland? When its secretion, that is the pancreatic juice, is poured into the duodenum for digestion. So it carries the secretion, that is the pancreatic juice, through a duct and it pours it into the digestive system, into the intestines. And as a ductless gland, you know, ductless means hormones are produced and it is poured directly into the blood. So as a ductless gland, it has special groups of hormone secreting cells which are known as islets of Langerhans. Okay, these are tiny groups of cells which are scattered in the entire gland. That is why they are known as islets. Islets, that is little islands. Now the islet cells produce three hormones: insulin, glucagon and somatostatin, from three different types of cells which are known as beta, alpha and delta cells respectively. That means beta cells produce insulin, alpha cells produce glucagon and delta cells produce somatostatin. And remember children, somatostatin is not required for your syllabus. Now insulin, which is secreted by the beta cells, checks the rise of sugar level in the blood. So it works in two ways. One is it promotes glucose utilization by the body cells. That is, glucose is used by the body cells. Next is it stimulates deposition of extra glucose. You know that if there is any extra glucose in the blood, it is stored as glycogen in the liver and the muscles. So that is also done by insulin. Okay, so if there is under secretion, less secretion of insulin, hyposecretion, what does it cause? It causes a disease which is known as diabetes. You must have heard about it. Okay, more correctly, it is known as diabetes mellitus or hyperglycemia. Hyper means more, glycemia means sugar. Okay, mellitus actually means honey, referring to the passage of sugar or glucose in urine, because the sugar will not be utilized properly in the body. So a diabetic person, you know, has high concentration of sugar in blood. Hyper means excess, glyco means sugar, emia comes from blood. And a diabetic person also excretes a great deal of urine loaded with sugar. Lots of sugar is dissolved in the urine, and because of that, since continuously urination is caused due to diabetes, the person feels thirsty because of the loss of water through too much urination, loses weight and becomes weaker and weaker. And sometimes in certain cases, the person loses eyesight or vision. And the usual treatment is by administering or giving insulin. Okay, remember that giving insulin shots is not a cure, but it is only a method of supplying the hormone which is not being produced by the pancreas because it is hyposecretion. Now, sometimes what may happen? There may be an oversecretion of insulin. So what happens if there is oversecretion? The sugar level in the blood is lowered. hypoglycaemia is caused. Hypo means less, and the brain may enter into a state of coma if the level becomes too low, even for a few minutes. You know, a similar thing happens to a diabetic patient if an overdose of insulin is given. There is more insulin in the blood, so all of the glucose is used up and the level of sugar in the blood becomes less, okay, and the patient will become unconscious. This is known as insulin shock or hypoglycemia, and a prompt bite of sweet biscuits or sugar candy is helpful in such cases. Okay, now the next hormone secreted by the pancreas is glucagon, and it is secreted, you know, from the alpha cells. It stimulates the breakdown of glycogen in the liver to glucose. So it stimulates the glycogen is broken down and reconverted to glucose, because you know, when there is excess of glucose in the blood, the glucose is stored in the liver as glycogen, and whenever required, the glycogen will be reconverted into glucose. So this stimulation is done by glucagon. So as a result, since more glucose is coming into the bloodstream, it raises the sugar level in the blood. Okay, now so you can see this is the hormones of islets of Langerhans. Insulin promotes glucose uptake by body cells, stimulates deposition of extra glucose as glycogen in the liver and muscles. Deficiency causes diabetes mellitus, that is sugar diabetes. Excess causes nerve cell starvation and brain coma. Glucagon from alpha cells, it stimulates liver to convert glycogen into glucose. And somatostatin is not there in your syllabus, but you can just, like, for your information, just keep in mind that it inhibits the secretion of insulin and glucagon. It does not allow the secretion of insulin and glucagon. Okay, so now next we move on to the thyroid. The thyroid is a bilobed, having two lobes, butterfly-shaped structure. There you can see a butterfly-shaped structure here, situated in front of the neck, just below the larynx. Now these two lobes are joined by a narrow isthmus, which is interconnection. So this portion here, okay, the two parts is connected by a narrow interconnection, which is known as isthmus. It secretes two hormones, thyroxine and calcitonin. Calcitonin is not there in your syllabus. Now thyroxine regulates the basal metabolism, the rate of cellular oxidation resulting in the heat production at rest. So the basal metabolism, when we talk about basal metabolism, what are we talking about? We are talking about the rate of cellular oxidation, that means respiration in the cells, which results in the production of heat when we are at rest. So if there is an increase in the secretion, what happens? There is an increase in metabolism, and if there is a decrease in secretion, it lowers it. And it also influences the general growth of the body, the overall growth of the body, ossifications of bones, body temperature, and mental development. Okay, nowadays this term is very, like, common. It is there in mostly every household. Someone is suffering from thyroid. Actually, it is either an under secretion, which is known as hypothyroidism, or an over secretion, okay, hyperthyroidism. So if there is insufficient secretion of thyroxine, it will lead to three conditions: a simple goiter, that is the enlargement of the thyroid, and it is visible as a swelling in the neck; cretinism, and myxedema. So this, you can see a simple goiter here. There is an enlargement of the thyroid, and you can see it as a swelling in the neck. And why is this? This is due to insufficient quantity of iodine in food. But nowadays, we get iodized salt. This condition is common in the people living in hilly regions where iodine is deficient. Iodine is less in soil, and the food does not have iodine. But anyway, the government nowadays they're supplying iodized salt so that iodine can reach people living in all different places. Okay. Now, cretinism is another condition which affects the growth of children, showing dwarfism, The child does not grow in height, and even mental retardation, that is, the mental state also remains like a child, and this is due to defective development or early atrophy. Atrophy means degeneration, that is breaking down of the thyroid. Next is myxedema, which is a condition that affects an adult if his thyroid does not function properly. In this condition, the person becomes sluggish, that is very slow, with swelling of the face and the hands. Now, oversecretion, if there is hyperthyroidism, excess of thyroxine secretion also causes a kind of goiter which is known as exophthalmic goiter. Okay, exo means outward, ophthalmos means the eye. A person having the problem of oversecretion shows a marked increase in metabolic rate. Okay, the metabolism increases. Due to that, there is rapid heartbeat, and if there is rapid heartbeat, then there will be shortness of breath, that is, must breathe continuously like panting. Okay, eyes are protruded, you can see this fellow here. Okay, how his eyes are protruding out here, and it also forms a goiter in the neck. Okay, so next we move on to the pituitary. Okay, pituitary gland is a small projection about the size of a pea. And where do you find it? You find it in the midbrain. It is hanging from the base of the midbrain, that is the middle brain, just below the hypothalamus. It is known as the master gland. Why master? Because it is in the brain, and you know the brain controls all the other systems of our body. So the master gland, that is the pituitary, which we find in the brain, is known as the master gland because it controls all the other endocrine glands. Okay, pituitary glands has two distinct lobes. The anterior pituitary, here you can see. Okay, so this is how it is hanging down from the hypothalamus. Here, this whole structure here, this is pea-sized. Okay, so here we have the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary. The entire pituitary gland weighs only about 1.5 grams. Okay, the front part of the posterior pituitary is different from the rest of the lobe and is known as the intermediate lobe. So here you can see this portion at the center, the front portion of the anterior, it is known as the intermediate lobe because it is different. So the intermediate lobe is almost absent in humans. We do not have the intermediate lobe, but it is much larger and more functional in some lower animals. So the intermediate lobe is absent in humans. Now, hormones from anterior pituitary, the hormones that is produced in the anterior lobe of the pituitary, first is the growth hormone, abbreviated as GH. Now these abbreviations, as I have told you, children, are very, very important. Okay, you may get to expand. So growth hormone is essential for normal growth, as the name suggests. It is also known as somatotropin. Okay, growth hormone is also known as somatotropin. Now, if there is a deficiency of the growth hormone in childhood, it results in dwarfism. That is, the growth will be retarded, but the mental development will carry on. Okay, so a dwarf, very short people, you've seen clowns in circuses and all, isn't it? Dwarfs, they're very short, but of course they are mentally properly developed, only the height does not increase. Now, if there is an over secretion in childhood, it results in gigantism. That is, a person will become very tall. Okay, because the long bones lengthens beyond the normal, and human giants up to 2.7 meters in height are produced. So dwarfism and gigantism, you must have seen the tallest man, tallest woman in the world in the Guinness Book of World Records, the shortest man, the shortest woman in the world. So actually they had suffered either from deficiency of the growth hormone or oversecretion of growth hormone in childhood. Now, if there is an oversecretion of the growth hormone in an adult, there is an extra growth of bones in the face, especially in the jaws. The jaws become large, and even the hands and feet. Okay, so the person suddenly will have a large nose and thick lips. This condition is known as acromegaly. Okay, that is in an adult. Now thyroid stimulating, next is thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. As the name suggests, it activates the thyroid to secrete thyroxine, thyroid stimulating hormone. It stimulates the thyroid to produce thyroxine. Next is gonad stimulating hormones, gonadotropic hormones. Okay, it regulates the activities of the testes in males and ovaries in females. So in the testes, sperms will be produced, and in the ovaries, ova will be produced. So it regulates the activities of the testes and the ovaries. Next is adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which regulates, as the name suggests, activity of the adrenal cortex. If you remember, okay, corticotropic hormones are produced in the adrenal cortex. Now the hormones that are produced from posterior pituitary, the posterior lobe produces two hormones, vasopressin and oxytocin. Okay, that is the first. Vasopressin is also known as antidiuretic hormone, abbreviated as ADH. Okay, antidiuretic, anti means against, diuretic means water. So what does it do? It constricts the blood vessels with rise in blood pressure. It acts on the kidney, increasing reabsorption of water from the kidney tubules. So there will be more reabsorption of water in the kidney tubules. Now if there is a deficiency, less of ADH, it causes a disease known as diabetes insipidus. That is water diabetes, because reabsorption of water does not take place in the kidney tubule. So if reabsorption does not take place, then what will happen? Urination will be very frequent. Continuously a person has to go and urinate, and it becomes copious, that means very thin, and there is a loss of water from the body, and the person feels thirsty most of the time. The next hormone, oxytocin, is produced only in a female, that also only during childbirth. Why? What does oxytocin do? It stimulates vigorous contraction of the uterus in a pregnant mother, leading to the birth of the baby, and it also stimulates the ejection of the milk that the baby is going to feed on. Okay, now finally we come to the control of hormonal secretions in our body. Okay, now there are commands going on in the body, like saying too much, slow down, you are producing too much, slow down, or too little, you are producing too little, speed up. This is known as feedback mechanism, because the body has a mechanism to maintain a normal state, a balanced state. Whenever there is a change in the state, there are messages through the body systems to increase if there is a fall below the normal, or to decrease if there is a rise above the normal. So this kind of ordering for the opposite is known as negative feedback. Why are they giving negative feedback? So that the normal state is restored. So most feedback mechanisms in our body are of this negative type. Okay, like for example, thyroid stimulating hormone level. Now sometimes positive feedback mechanisms are also there. For example, and of course it is very few. Now is that one example is that of uterine contractions during childbirth. What is the normal state of our uterus? It is uncontracted. The muscle should not contract. Okay, so instead of commanding to come back to normal, the body gives a message to continue to contract further. So this is positive feedback until of course the child is delivered. Okay, so with this, children, we come to the end of this chapter and of course the end of the syllabus. Your assignment for today is again to do the structured type question answers, and as usual submit it to me day after tomorrow, and if you have any queries, I'll be available on WhatsApp. Till then, children, stay safe. God bless you.